There's a great and a bloody fight round this whole world tonight. In the battle of bombs and shrapnel rain, Hitler told the world around he would tear our Union down. But our Union's gonna break them slavery chains. And our Union's gonna break them slavery chains.
What the fuck did you just say, Seth?
We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. If you want rule, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
All right, so welcome to the Delusionals. This is me, Salvatore Limo, with my co-host, as usual, Anthony Bosico. Today, we have a very exciting guest. I'm very excited for this. Anthony's very excited for this. We have Jesse. He's a media rep for the IWW, which is the Industrial Workers of the World. We're very excited to have him here. Jesse, welcome.
Thank you. And to add on to that, my first meeting ever, I led the meeting, and the entire time I kept saying International Workers of the World over and over and over again. And then at the very end, my organizer came up and he said, well, that wasn't right, but you tried. So it's an issue we all make once in a while.
So for those of you that don't know, the IWW, aka the Industrial Workers of the World, or the Wobblies, is a historical labor union. It's founded in 1905 in Chicago, I believe, right?
Yep.
And I think it was 6 founding members, but Eugene Debs, who was probably the most notable socialist in American history, is one of the co-founders. And they have a very long and bridled history of strikes, wildcat strikes. You could say that it's a syndicalist movement or a socialist movement even. And it's probably the closest thing to like a socialist or Marxist or syndicalist uprising in America that we've had that is not really covered. And I mean, it's a union that has a very long documented history. And to this day, they're still fighting for, the same thing they've been fighting for. Of course, as time goes on, the fight modernizes a little bit. I think to me, one of the most interesting things that I've seen was the abolition, like there's calling for the abolition of the restaurant industry, which is, I think, a very, very interesting conversation. We'll probably get into that later. But so let's talk, what made you join the IWW really quickly?
So I grew up in Appalachia, in the heart of rural Appalachia. And when I had worked my whole life, I got a job at the age of 13 in a tobacco farm. And then at 16, I worked at McDonald's. And then at 18, I got a job at the local courthouse taking notes for tourists. And throughout that whole time, I just felt like a cog working for someone else and realizing, that if I wasn't working and my coworkers weren't working, that none of this stuff would be done. And it's not like the owner of the farm is out picking the tobacco and throwing it on the truck, or, it's not like the CEO of McDonald's knows how to make a McChicken sandwich, no lettuce, So the mighty hot sauce. It's not like the bosses come out and do the work. And my grandpa was a Teamster up in Detroit in the 60s. And I heard all about that stuff when I was a little kid, but never really knew about it because I wasn't educated in the school system. And I just clicked one day when I was reading a history book that, all of the power comes from the people who create it. Labor is entitled to the wealth it creates. So frankly, I sat on it for a couple of years. I think most people who join the IWW don't join instantly when they learn about it because it's such a radical message, and it's intentionally radical. The working class and the employing class have nothing in common. Bang. That's like such a shot in the dark to get people thinking. It's like it digs its hook in you and you think about it for a long time. So I've been a member for about a year now, actually. And through that, I've been able to get involved and do many great things, such as running the IWW Instagram, going from 8,000 followers to 45 odd followers. 45,000 odd followers.
Damn.
And
Teach us the ways.
I don't know. I just got lucky, I guess. But I think, like, truly the reason I joined the IWW, I was in Georgia at the time, honoring the Freedom Riders of Dr. Farmer, from the Civil Rights Movement, and I listened to Utah Phillips talk about the Commonwealth of Toil is the song he was playing, and then he talked about the bum on the rods and the bum on the skids, talking about like how the people up top really do nothing, but they get all the praise, but the people who make all the wealth are treated as leeches and fleas on society, when in reality there's just a giant tick sitting up top sucking all the blood. And then from there, when I heard that and remembered all of the hardship that my grandfather went through, that my father went through, that my mother went through, I joined the union as fast as I could. Got my card within 3 weeks, and then organized the branch meeting a month later. And then my branch that I organized is chartering, and it's a very exciting time. We have like 40 new branches chartering. We're growing in membership for the first time since like 1930. So
Wow,
it's cool.
That's awesome. That's really awesome.
And it's just because people are, through the age of the essential worker, people are realizing that without them, this world can't work. Without agitators such as yourselves, we have really nothing to go off of, and we're just like chatteled slaves as old. Chatteled slaves of old, as the saying goes.
Yeah.
So you mentioned COVID-19 and the pandemic and the rise of the essential worker. Amazon and other like monopolistic corporations have really taken advantage of this time, and workers have been trying to have like a counterbalance to it. Like, why hasn't there exactly been a general strike? Like, I see Christopher Smalls, that was the Amazon worker who got fired, and it came out that the board of Amazon was like trying to basically defame him and say that and break up his strike. And I think that if he had a bit more support, it would have gone a long way. So why haven't we had a general strike? So
the thing about the general strike is that is the end goal of organized labor, in my opinion, and the IWW's opinion. But it can't be something small. It can't be something minute. It has to be every industry organized together to just put down everything. So the thing about Christopher Smalls is Amazon has this very strict organizing policy, and he wasn't the first to be fired for organizing a union, but it was the most publicized one. And I think his efforts will go forward and finally get Amazon organized, hopefully. Cross fingers, knock on wood, all that. But as our General Secretary, Cameron Minucci, says, we need to organize a general strike before we can have one. And with the numbers of American unions being so low, I think you guys put it at 6%, right?
I think it was 4.
4.
Yeah, 4%.
And ultimately, that would make the tactic of a general strike look in nature become something that can be written off, such as strikes themselves. I mean, in the recent couple of days, there's been tons of people, Ben Shapiro mainly, who have been saying that strikes don't work, strikes are short-term, or strikes are, because frankly, if we aren't strategic about when we strike, they won't work. But there has been small-scale, I guess, general strikes, such as I think it was May 15th. Let me just double check. Burgerville, the freelance journalist, and other unions such as the dock worker unions and SEIU did strike for Black Lives, where they all stopped working, and that did a lot of pushing things forward. So while a general strike is needed right now to really bring forth the change we need, I and many of the people in the union are afraid that if we call one, it will forever damage the reputation of this powerful tool in the toolkit of labor. Not saying we don't need one, but saying we need to hold on and keep this Chekhov's gun in our pocket for a little bit before we fire it right into the heart of the capitalist.
I think the numbers game is a pretty important aspect. Like, you know, we mentioned 4% of people are there's like 4% unions in the country, and you know, there's been the response to the Amazon strike, or the attempt, was that they basically put out a job position for somebody to be on the lookout for strikes or organizers, and basically like report them before they get too big. So it's like that number, that 4%, can stay there. If the strikes aren't successful, then more companies can hire like inside anti-strike people, I guess, to like kind of just keep that number floating. So yeah, I do think that the number would have to grow before a general strike would become successful.
And I think like in history, if a strike is busted, that can haunt labor throughout, because Patco, the airport strike in the 80s, was busted, and since then that's given governors the authority to do that. That's removed collective bargaining rights for many unions in government work, because, you know, frankly, our government hates poor people, and they make it illegal to be poor in a lot of ways, or at least be poor and fight back. So after Patco, it's haunted the labor movement, because Ronald Reagan famously fired anyone who went on strike there. And that happened in 2011 in Washington. I think it was mail carriers were going to go on strike, and they were just fired and threatened with Patco-like consequences, within quotes. So I think like it's definitely a thing to be safe with and be wary with, because, I mean, not to reveal too many things, because it's never smart to talk before your cards are dealt, but I know for a fact we have a bunch of organizers from a bunch of different unions, not only the IWW, on the ground in Amazon workhouses, organizing people and rallying up support and agitating. Not to reveal anything.
So one thing that I learned about this organization was that it's industrial unionism as opposed to craft unionism. So basically, if you're in a job, if you have a job, or even if I'm not mistaken, even if you don't have a job, you can join this union, as opposed to a craft union, which is specific to a certain craft. And considering the nature of the IWW and the lengthy history of strikes and political action that the organization has, like, how significant do you think it is for an industrial unionism to exist today as opposed to a craft unionism?
Well, I think industrial unionism is the only way for people to effectively come together. I think, like, you know, trade unions are effective for lobbying for their own cause, but they spawn this sort of, like, they spawn antagonism between other trade unions, because there's only, in that sort of organizing, there's only so much collective bargaining rights you can have, so much power that can be held from the carpenters when they're not working with the Teamsters. Because if these carpenters go on strike, these Teamsters still need to, like, drive their trucks. They still need to get their money, so they're going to be forced to go to the other one. I think Big Bill Haywood said it perfectly. You know, if we all organize like one finger on a hand, we're just going to be poking at it. But if we organize as a fist, we're going to be punching at it. Ow, I punched my desk.
Trying to be a bit too literal.
But I think, like, the perfect way to represent this, and this is like a very obscure reference, but there was a union in the 1930s that was organizing meat packers in Chicago and the Midwest, the PWOC, the Packing House Workers Organizing Committee. And they were rivals to the Autonomous Meatworking Union or something like that. Just thousands of different names I think the AFL-CIO rivalry from the 30s, 40s, 50s is the perfect example of why trade unionism really hurts the labor movement in a mass scale. But I think not to say these trade unions aren't important, because IBU and other unions, I mean, they do great work, such as like the internship programs that the International Brotherhood of Electronics Workers do. That's how I met a very good friend of mine. So I think like they're both needed for the labor movement to succeed, but I think for the working class to overcome the evil hellscape that is capitalism, we need an industrial union, a one big union, to come together and throw off the funk. Lawrence is a perfect example of a general strike in 1912, where everyone stopped working in mills and just stopped, and they got what they needed.
It's a bit understated that government's role in the drastic decrease of unionization in the last half century, considering that Congress passed the Taft-Hartley Act, and we started having things called independent contractors, which shouldn't really be recognized as something that makes labor unrecognizable to the worker and detaches the worker from their employer. So with that, how do we legislatively reverse that, or is there something we can do that could counteract all the Supreme Court decisions, all the stripping down of labor rights?
Well, the wobbly in me wants to say we need to just create a new world within the shell of the old. But I think, frankly, the best way to do it is just keep flexing the power of labor, because none of these rights that we once kind of enjoyed in the 30s and 40s, that labor enjoyed, I'm not saying anyone enjoyed, but those rights just didn't exist in the 19th century. We created those rights. We fought for them. And to speak purely as an IWW rep, frankly, it's us who creates all the power, and it's us who creates all the good things that we enjoy. But if we need to go back and fight these Supreme Court decisions, we need to organize in the state level and repeal right to work. Because at that point, the more we repeal these bigger laws like right to work from the Taft-Hartley Act, we gain more power. I mean, states that already have rise in unionization, such as I think Ohio repealed it in 2008. But the thing we have to worry about, and the thing that's on the forefront of discussion for a lot of labor historians, is the shift towards a gig economy and the shift towards a market outside of the U.S. Because we could be a fully organized, and this is another reason why I love the IWW. So we could be a fully organized country. We could have the one big union in the U.S. We could shut everything down in the United States, but these capitalists can still shift their interest to, say, like Burma or China or smaller countries that need the industry, to need the GDP to compete with others. I mean, they, I think I don't want to go Marxist here, but the bourgeois have really they've really created a system that ensures their sustainability throughout all revolutions. I mean, not only are they not attached to governments, not only are they not attached to the land they live on, not only are they not attached to their labor, but they're no longer attached to any sort of continent. They're removed so far from everything. And Uber is a prime example of this, when they tried to squeeze out that industry in the Middle East and try to take over the ride system. I mean, they have the capital to do it because they are going through neo-imperialism. They're using their privilege of being in the U.S. and they're using their privilege of having a white board of executives to go over and take over industries in other countries. So no longer is imperialism through the flag, but it's through the dollar. I mean, and that's something that we need to be on the lookout for. We need to start fighting that on the forefront and try to move our knight so the rook can't take our king.
They even threatened to shut down in California.
Yeah.
Because there was a proposition in California saying that I think they're completely striking down independent contractors or forcing them specifically to adopt the drivers as permanent workers.
Because I mean, like, if you do the math on, like, I think they released a propaganda campaign recently. It's like, get $13,000 for your first 25 drives, and then someone did the math, and it was like they're only getting paid like $6.50 an hour. It's like,
I think I saw that where you'd have to work like 80 hours a week to get that number or something like that.
Yeah, and it's not even like a good amount, and it's bad that we are gonna be hounding after 13,000. Like, I got $900 recently from a tuition kickback, and I felt like I was king of the world. So I can't imagine how Jeff Bezos feels every day.
Fucking facts, right? And even with the pandemic, they just get richer and richer.
Yeah, it's like, how can someone have some more money than entire populations on continents? You know, it's like,
yeah,
bewildering.
It's one thing that I think isn't really understood in America, and it kind of ties into the history of the IWW too, is that profit is exploited labor, and the history of the IWW, and I think it's important to note why it's probably so small now, is that the government saw how dangerous this movement was, not dangerous because it was violent, not dangerous but because it wanted to own the labor. And it was a different organization because it was kind of decentralized, I want to say, and there was like rank and file organization, like, and I think I read that members of the IWW refused to sign contracts, which I think is also brilliant. But I think as riots and strikes started happening, the government started taking an active role in squashing them and sending police to either diminish the riots and the strikes, or to just outright kill people. And there was a few leaders that were murdered by the state of the IWW. Is that true?
They were murdered. They were deported. They were beaten. They were sent to prison for their whole life. I mean,
it kind of speaks to how the police are used by the state to, like, not protect people, but to protect property and to protect profit and to keep labor exploited. And that's why you guys don't let cops form unions within the IWW.
We've recognized since 1905 that cops come from a history of a racist history, and we've recognized that they're gonna bonk us over the head if we try to do anything, and we can't have our members being organized. We can't be in a family with someone who's gonna beat the fuck out of us every day. You know what I mean? It's like, at that point, we're just inviting. At that point, we're just inviting them to take over the organization because they have the capital. They have enough bread to have sustainability. There's a labor university in I think it's Spokane, and they teach people how to deal with stuff like this. I had the awesome privilege of going through one of their classes, and they did the scenario where someone makes bread, and then someone works in a factory, and someone owns the factory, and someone becomes a cop. And that person who becomes a cop just gets a pay raise whenever there's a strike, so they don't join them. That person never, in any situation, in any of the scenarios in that hypothetical, the cop will never switch sides to join over. I wholeheartedly believe, unless you stop being a cop, they're not going to put down their guns. And that's why me and a big section of the IWW firmly believe in ACAB and have since 1905. But also, like, I think a perfect example of what you're saying is the Palmer raids and the free speech fights, because we're supposed to have these rights given to us by some sort of creator and God or whatever. But all they do is it's just a piece of paper to make us feel happy. It's like because you can go out on the street and start screaming, "I've been robbed by the capitalist system, fellow workers," and they're gonna put handcuffs on you and drag you to jail, or at least fine you $4,000. And where's the free speech in that? Because you're just saying stuff. They call you inflammatory.
Yeah.
I think like they've also done a great job in tearing down the memory. Since we were bringing this up earlier, Utah Phillips said, and to reference him again, the most radical thought in America is the idea of the long memory, and you just knowing the history there is how you move forward. Because I am I'm an American Studies major at a university, and like until recently, you never think about like activism pre 1900. You never think about that, but there really was a lot. There's in the 1600s, tons of people would fight slave codes. I mean, as early as the start of slavery in America, there were people fighting against it, and they don't want you to remember that. The bourgeois class, want you to forget that people like cared about other people. They want to have a broad stroke of this is what we were doing, so this is what everyone was doing. They want to make history homogenous, and that's something we can't let happen. If that were to happen, the IWW would die, and it almost did die. I mean, I'll be open about that. The IWW fell apart in the 20s because of the Palmer raids and internal fighting. In 2000, I was born in 2001 myself, so a year before I was born, there were only 200 members in this union that was once over 100,000 big, and now it's getting back up there to about 13,000 worldwide. So
Damn.
It just shows that people are fed up with this shit. After after the great age of neoliberalism in the 90s, I mean, we were force-fed advertisements and force-fed all this like random bullshit like moon bounce to steal our bread. I mean, they just want. Yeah, go ahead. Let's move on. I'm getting
We'll transition to Joe Biden.
Yes. Joe Biden.
Clap, you stupid bastards.
When I saw that, I got really excited. I like laughed for half an hour. I don't know why.
One, I married Jill, and two, I appointed Johnson to the academy. I just want you to know that. Just clap for that, you stupid bastards. Must be slow here, man.
Dude, me too. I thought that was I was like, I might be motivated to vote for him after that. That was funny as fuck.
It's like anytime he does something cool, he's attacked.
It's gonna be it was a precursor of the upcoming debate on Tuesday, which we're gonna watch it together.
If he says that, I would actually be motivated to vote for him. Now this isn't the IWW speaking, just to clarify, everyone. Electoralism is a sham. But now as me, as Jesse, I'll say I personally like the fact that Joe Biden has brought conservative unions to the table. I wish he would ask the AFL to drop cops. I wish he would say all these things, but at least they're at the table.
I don't know if he would be able to say, and I'm like I don't. I just like every time he talks, he trails off into some weird rant about like malt shakes and shit. So I don't really know if he'd be.
I'm wondering about what you said previously about the UAW.
They had the national strike last year.
Yeah, I remember that,
which was awesome. But after about 4 months of striking, they stopped and they got a contract. They like capitulated on a lot of their contracts, like the goals for their contract, and then they ignored the coalesce strikes in California and let that fizzle out and let the organizers get fired. So I personally think what they're doing in like the border area is important right now because they're organizing miners.
I heard that General Motors actually like stripped their workers of health insurance who participated in that strike.
Wow.
Do you think that like contributed to their like apprehension of continuing the strike?
Most likely, yeah. That's I from the contact I had, UAW in Fredericksburg, they didn't really have much they could do to help with the strike, but GM was definitely going into very illegal practices like wage theft. Now, legally, I probably can't say GM did wage theft. NLRB, go get them because laws. But I think UAW. Well, I was mostly referring to betraying the COLA workers, the grad students in California, but they capitulated on a lot of key issues for the contract. But back to Joe Biden talking about things that are over 80 years old.
Oh yeah.
So we've kind of mulled over what unions, what role they play in the election, and not to convince people to vote for who, which way, whatever, but like, is there any kind of union presence, or is there any kind of like union policy that anyone should look out for that either president is speaking about? Because I don't really think unions, I feel like unions are very, like, they exist in America, but they don't exist as much as they should, and they're a lot of the policies regarding them are very like hush hush. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but like,
Yeah, it feels like they're propped up when it's like politically expedient.
Yeah.
Instead of actually like being a tangible thing that Americans and like politicians like reference to.
right.
I think like politicians do enough just to get the labor vote, but not enough to get labor back to where it could be or farther. They do like, we'll increase your minimum wage. They do that short term. They do this capitalist thing where they look for short term profits instead of addressing long term problems. I think Joe Biden has like conservative unions like the Teamsters, UAW, and AFL at the forefront. I was watching the convention just out of like spite and interest at the same time.
God bless you.
And right before he gave his big speech, he had the president of AFL, the president of Teamsters, and the president of UAW there, which I was like, whoa, that's kind of cool.
Well, he was also part of the Obama administration that failed to deliver on the Employee Free Choice Act, which enabled organizing through card check, and he also he also voted for NAFTA, which obviously like gutted all the manufacturing jobs that were in the Midwest and sent them off to Asia. So do you really think that Joe Biden will actually, people like one of my leftist friends said that the defining quality of Joe Biden is that he's better than Trump on a National Labor Relations Board, and having those representatives on that board is actually why you should vote for Joe Biden. And I kind of disagree, because I actually looked up and compared like the National Relations Board under Bush and under Obama. They actually certified less unions. So I really don't understand like why you should vote for Joe Biden.
I don't either. I personally probably won't. But I mean, under Joe Obama,
not even in West
Joe
Virginia,
that was a mistake. But
Joe Obama.
I live in Eastern Virginia now. I live sort of closer to DC. But I grew up.
Isn't that like peak Biden country?
Yes, it is. There's tons of MAGA flags all over the town that are like, but I grew up like in deep MAGA country as well, so I kind of have both like the hard conservative perspective, or not perspective, but experience, and the hard liberal experience. Because like here, if you wear a shirt made by a union, that's the most labor friendly you do. And then back home, if you join a union, well, I guess you're not home anymore because you're getting kicked out. You're fired.
Damn. Fuck.
But to say the thing about Joe Biden and the Obama administration, a documentary came out recently on Netflix called American Factory that talked about a labor struggle in Ohio, Dayton, Ohio, at the Fuyao glass factory. Something that's very important to remember, the NLRB letting union busting go on so blatantly and openly, that was during 2013. That was the Obama administration. I mean, as a member of the IWW and as a left adjacent person or leftist person, I'll say neither party really cares about labor. They just care about getting the labor vote. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then one doesn't care at all. But
yeah. Totally. And I mean, there's no incentive for them to care about labor. And I think the country has been so successful at squashing leftist movements throughout history that which directly played a part in the diminishing of the IWW, and to the point where if you mention it now in 2020, the effectiveness of one big union, I feel like a lot of people really quite wouldn't get it, which scares me a lot. But I hope that changes, and I hope that I'm wrong about that. But I think.
Sorry, I would like to. Sorry, I just want to go back to the union's role in the election. Sorry to interrupt you, but I would like to hammer in this point. A very interesting thing that started to happen last year was campaigns and staffers were starting to be organized. Like Joshua Collins for Congress, Bernie's staff was organized, and a lot of the people doing that work. And this is to hammer in kind of an overarching theme that I want to progress here, is that the Wobblies is a union for unions. That, like, we are the union for those guys going out and organizing other unions. And that's kind of my perspective on the IWW. Because I remember going to an event hosted by, like, some Bernie staffers, and I remember, like, looking around and seeing all of the WOB pins on their shirts and, like, being really interested in that, because I think that is the next stage to fighting electoralism, is going into the heart of it and organizing the workers who are forced to write all those bills who do not get the credit.
What did you think of Bernie Sanders' campaign? Do you feel like it accurately represented all the goals and aspirations that the IWW hold?
No. No, frankly, no.
Ooh, talk more about that.
I think the Bernie campaign, I supported Bernie Sanders, first of all. I voted for him in the primary. I have a poster of his because I donated $5. But,
right.
I didn't get no.
Yo, Bernie, what the fuck? I got a book by this fool because I donated so much money to him. I got a book and I got a bunch of other Bernie shit.
I'll say
I've donated $150 to Bernie Sanders. I got jack shit.
What?
Yo, Bernie, what's up?
I got an awesome poster.
Damn.
I'll say, as a former Bernie supporter, and I mean, I guess, like, he's an all right guy. He's old.
I'm sorry. He's all right. He's old.
I wish he pushed the narrative further. I wish, like, there was a moment in time where, when he was ending his campaign, he could have compelled people to go out and actually join unions and do work. And, you know, this is kind of a big controversy because one of his, like, staff were organized through the IWW. His website and his app didn't recognize the IWW as a union at all.
Wow.
Which is okay. It's kind of a small fringe movement in a way, but
yeah, but if you're the guy who keeps on speaking about Eugene Debs,
that's what I was going to say.
It's a bit hypocritical, but also I'll say, like, on a pure policy platform, he does not represent, in my opinion, he's more of like an FDR style of labor. He is going to focus on one big thing and not like focus on everything. Because FDR famously neglected the American South horribly. I mean, sharecroppers lasted through FDR. No one ever talks about that. You know, it's like essentially slavery was still around through the 50s because sharecropping was still around. And what got rid of sharecropping was a sharecroppers union. I think Bernie Sanders promises an ideal world where we don't have to go out in the streets and fight for what we need. It promises a world where we can go vote for what we need and buy it in the marketplace of ideology. But that's not the one we live in, sadly. We have to go out, organize, and fight for what we want. But aside from that, he's a cool senator, I guess.
It's weird that he didn't have this. It's weird that he doesn't have that that vision for the IWW or that admiration for it, because he did do a documentary on Eugene V. Debs in like the 70s, and it's, I don't know, Eugene Debs was a big part of the IWW. It's a little strange that, you know, he wouldn't do. And it's also Eugene Debs, if I'm not mistaken, because of his work in the IWW, was sent to prison, and because of the conditions of the prison, when he got out, he like died shortly after. And it's like, I don't know, that's a little, I didn't know that he wasn't as staunch of a union supporter as I thought he was.
Well,
That's
I mean,
crazy.
he supported like UFCW and stuff. He supported like the traditional big unions, like the conservative unions. And I'll say, like, out of any candidate, he's probably the most labor friendly because, unlike, say, Joe Biden, since we're bringing him up, all of his merch was made by unions, and he makes sure the little union bug is always visible. So if you get a Bernie Sanders thing, sorry, Anthony, you can find who made it, and that's what's awesome. I think, like, Bernie, to go back to some Marxist ideas, Bernie Sanders addresses like an idea of estranged labor, but he doesn't like tell you how to pursue and pull that thread out and fix it. Because like,
Yeah,
you can tell who makes it, but he'll just give you a little bit more money to make it.
right. Huh. That's a good. I would have never thought of that. That's it's pretty eye opening about Bernie.
Did you also agree with his platform for Medicare for all and like how Democrats are trying to like distort Medicare for all to seem like
No,
the general population?
I do agree with that. I think Medicare and I think healthcare is a human right, or as he would say, healthcare is a human right. I think like we all need to be able to fix something if we get hurt. I have always benefited from state managed Medicare because I grew up in a household income below 8,000. So I've always had it. I've always had money, or not much. I've always had health care because of a lack of money. But so I can just go to any hospital and not have to pay anything, and everyone should have that because, like, one time I fell off of like something. I don't even remember what I was doing. I cut my arm open on a fence and I almost bled to death. And if I didn't have Medicare, that would have been like $17,000 fine. Just I fall and then I'm in debt for the rest of my life. How fair is that?
It makes no fucking sense. One of my favorite quotes that I stumbled upon from the IWW was this was at a meeting in Boston in 1914 about unemployed workers. It said that like workers had the right to steal food and whatever else they need to maintain their health and welfare, and we affirm that it is stealing only in name and not in fact the primal rights. And my tone was wrong. Stealing only in name and not in fact the primal rights of man are supreme. That's some fucking bars.
It is. I mean, that just like I think that still reverberates today because famously in Kenosha, on the courthouse, you've stolen more than we could ever loot. Is just the biggest boom that needs to be banged on the drum for the rest of the year, for the rest of the decade. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to burst out in song because we are the singing union, but like they've taken our lives, they've taken our husbands and wives, and they called it their legal share.
Yeah. And how important do you think it is to lean into that? I don't want to say aggressive. I feel like aggressive isn't the right word, but these are very strong lines, and these are just very strong phrases to adhere to, and principles. And how important do you think it is to be openly strong and direct about your purpose and your meaning?
Well, I think this is the philosophy of the IWW, is it's important to just be open and very direct about things. Because in our preamble to our Constitution, it goes as this. It says, the working class and the employing class have nothing in common. There can be no peace as long as hunger and want are found among millions of the working people and the few who make up the employing class of all the good things of life. Between these two classes, a struggle must go on until the workers of the world, organized as a class, take possession of the means of production, abolish the wage system, and live in a harmony with the earth. That's the first two paragraphs. That's just like, I think it hooks you in. I think being so open and being so true hooks you in, and it makes you want to learn more about it.
Yeah.
Well, I think like there's some point to kind of being nuanced. Like, obviously, I don't want to go to Huntsville, Alabama and say, look here, the rich people, they're evil. And, racism's bad, because then, like, you might go missing. I mean, it's like what happened with Scribb in the 60s. I mean, being an agitator, and I'm sure you both know this, being an agitator is hard work because you're supposed to piss people off, but you want to piss people off in the right way. You know what I mean?
I don't know how to do that yet.
Yeah, we're not agitators.
Well, yeah, I think you guys do a great job at agitating from your podcast. That's agitation right there. That's as like I like to call it, as agitprop. It's agitation propaganda.
I fuck with it.
And it's like, the way just teaching people is a way of agitation. I think like A, E, I, O, and U all go together perfectly. They all tie together. It's like this big flying orb, and that's agitate, educate, inoculize, organize, unionize. You have
I've heard that before.
Yeah. Oh shit. Yeah, I wrote that down in one of my notes. Where the fuck did I get that from?
I think that was from our first episode.
No. Shout out my homie John. He's one of my friends, is an organizer, and we were chatting with him one day, and he told us that that's like a strategy.
I think that's like the main strategy. That's like, for the IWW, ours is agitate, educate, emancipate, because we're trying to liberate people from this bonds of wage slavery. And I think like it's tried and true. It helps. They all tie together. Like, when you're agitating someone, you're educating them. When you're educating them, you're inoculating them from like fascist propaganda. Fascist openly, because bourgeois social fascist, whatever. And then organizing.
They all work together.
They do, and it's a perfect come together for. It's like putting on boxing gloves. First you have to tie the tape around your hand.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Anthony was just talking to me earlier today about. I don't know if you've seen this clip of Bill Maher, basically saying that he would have rather Hillary's evil, and it was a very gross rant. He said something like,
he said enjoy your rape baby, and call her Jill Stein because of you, because of not voting for Hillary Clinton and now having a third conservative Supreme Court judge picked by Trump. You're the reason why this country is going to the hellscape.
And Bill Maher he's supposed to be a big liberal figurehead, no? And it's weird to hear, Anthony pointed this out to me, that he's literally manufacturing consent.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't want to just come out with full swing, but I think
Come on, Jesse.
Liberals are I think Phil Oak said it best: 10 degrees to the left in good times, 10 degrees in the right in times when it affects them personally. Because all they care about is what's in their pocket. All they care about what's over their head. They only care if they got bread. It's like, it's the illusion of doing something, in my opinion. It's like, the perfect example is like Trump saying he won't surrender power, and the Democrats saying we'll go vote him out. I think that's the exact same thing, but less vulgar. I think like, and obviously vulgarity's no problem, but like, it's just the insensitive nature of saying. I haven't heard the rant, but if he said rape babies, that's awful. That's evil. But it's just so insensitive, and I think a liberal, and not to paraphrase Lenin here, but like a liberal would report on the people killing them. You know, it's like a capitalist will sell the rope hanging them. The liberal will try to tell you what to do while you're doing it. They want to dictate the way they want to die, per se.
Fuck, it's true. I never heard that line.
But the Lenin one's the capitalist thing. That's why mine was so stilted. But I think, like, frankly, it's important to recognize that the fear that guy is like feeling of, it's the same fear we all feel, but he comes from a position of power and he knows he's like on that chopping block when it comes.
But I don't fear like the prospect of Trump being a dictator.
Oh no, I was meaning like it's kind of, sorry to cut you off, but I think like it's the same fear we all fear of like change coming, and it's like, you know what I mean. But you can go ahead. Sorry, I wanted to clarify myself.
But there's actually like no change in anything that Trump has done, even to Barack Obama, and I'm pretty sure that when Joe Biden says go back to normal, I'm pretty sure it's back to the like neoliberal project that's been hatched since like 1980. So
yeah,
I don't really.
To clarify, like what I was saying is like he is afraid for his livelihood, like we are all afraid for our livelihood, in a way where he's directly affected. He wants us to feel like we're directly affected. Like, I don't know if I portrayed that well. Like, we're still going to be being kicked on. Dust is going to be in our eyes. But now that he's at risk, he's going to tell you that we're all at risk. It's kind of a corrupt form of solidarity in a way. Like, they don't care when we're in trouble.
I think that Bill Maher, I mean, his ratings in the Trump era has like exploded, and I think that the Democrats like posing as an opposition party has like benefited the most out of the Trump era. They since last Friday they've fundraised $200 million to give to Joe Biden and other Senate Democrats, and
for him to not even campaign in a swing state, which blows my mind.
And when he loses, and he will lose, I sincerely think
I agree.
He will.
I agree.
We're just gonna punch left, and they're preemptively punching left. Like if Joe Biden loses, you're the reason, not because he's actually like a bad representation of the Democratic Party. Forget my politics, but like a mainstream Democrat is actually to the left of Joe Biden significantly. And the appeal of him, it's just not there for them. And
like I also think like the whole point of Joe Biden and this return to normalcy is to combat the growth of like an idea of a socialist movement. And like, you know, after Bernie dropped out, PSL, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, a Marxist-Leninist organization, has grown like twofold. Like, and the DSA got over 100,000 members the week he dropped out. Like, I mean, I think, as you're saying, you hit it directly on the head. And I guess you portrayed it better than I was, because I wasn't saying we're tied to the Trump or anything. I wasn't saying like our livelihoods are tied. I'm saying like they want you to think they are, and I think you hit it directly on the head there, because like frankly, nothing will change. I mean, nothing has changed since Reagan. Except it got worse. We lost our pensions.
Yeah.
We lost, you know, it's like they're loosening child labor laws, for God's sake.
What the fuck?
We're regressing backwards, and I think people see that, and I think both the Democrats and Republicans are afraid of that. and that's why I think they work hand in hand. I mean, my favorite wobbly cartoon is the one that's like this big guy. He has the edible in his chest, and he's handing a worker either a spiked bat, and then like people supposed to represent Congress are handing him a ballot box, and it says, "Which one do you pick?" I'll send it to you guys if you want to edit it and put it up there.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not sure if you're aware of the outdoor dining plan that they recently announced for New York. But so basically they signed on to allow outdoor dining through the winter, which to me is fucking bananas. And a lot of people are celebrating it because it's going to keep restaurants open, but I personally feel like restaurants should be fighting the rent costs in the city. But I mean, easier said than done, I guess. But so basically this proposal would allow these places to have outdoor dining, and if they choose to have like I don't fucking remember those words. What is it? The awning? I don't know, whatever. If they have like an enclosure and they have a heater, they have to stay at 25% capacity. But if they don't and it's an open space, they can fill the seats. But people are working in the cold and eating in the cold, and I don't really see that happening because it's fucking cold in New York in the winter. And I wanted to ask, because I mentioned earlier about abolishing the restaurant industry, which I think is a very fascinating proposal. Can you speak about that a little bit?
I think like the service industry, and especially in the restaurant regard, is one of the most abused industries in the nation. I mean, like waitresses don't even earn, or waitresses, they don't even earn minimum wage, and they're subject to abuse. They're subject to harassment. They're subject to just stalking. That's like a big issue in DC, is waitresses and waiters will be stalked. And then they're subject to be fired. It's a revolving door. It's like an industry that's so like screwed into our head as necessary as like, because the bourgeois capitalist class have really kind of removed our ability to be self-reliant, and that's why like ecology and like gardening is a revolutionary act, and that's why like growing your own plants and eating, that makes you self-sustainable. That removes you from that. And the reason I so vehemently oppose like supporting forward like a cause to help like restaurants such as that eating outside thing, or even just opening them back up like as they did in Florida today, I think it really does nothing but put the risk of the workers, because as someone who's worked in restaurants, I say like it's awful. You feel so dehumanized regardless what you do. I mean, so the push to abolish the restaurant industrial complex is really in its own right an industrial action, because if you do that, then the meat industry will no longer need to produce as much, and that will help the environment. And there's so many things that goes on, and it's so like on the pulse to American capitalism. It's like it's a main artery in American capitalism. If you sever it, it will bleed. Yeah. And frankly, like, it's something hard to do because it's something that has made life more convenient for everyone.
So is it just the restaurant industry, or you're including the food industry?
Yes.
Because you can make an argument that I remember a few months ago that there were some Purdue Farm plants that harbored a lot of like COVID victims, and they still told their workers to work through it. And if you think about it, those workers are like working on your chicken, may have COVID-19, and they're spreading it throughout the nation just for profits and just to like obtain this stranglehold on like a depleted economy. So is there a way for the food industry and the restaurant industry to connect so they could like have like a stronger case
Yeah, I think
for abolishing it.
I think that's the way to go, and I think I haven't read the pamphlet you mentioned earlier, Sal, but I think that's definitely the way to go, because though if we aren't organizing both at the same time, if we don't approach it as a multifaceted issue, it's just going to result in mass scabbing and antagonism between the two, because we try to hurt the restaurant industry, that in turn hurts the meatpacking industry. And if we try to hurt the meatpacking industry, that in turn hurts the restaurant industry. And the workers are the ones who will be feeling the tree shaking, so to speak. So we need to find a way to move the path together and push it along at the same time to ultimately and vehemently destroy this corruptive system that is ruining people's lives daily. Because if you get stuck in the cycle of working at McDonald's and going in debt and working, you're stuck there. I mean, when I worked at McDonald's, there was someone who worked there since 9/11 because they just got out of college and they couldn't pay off their debts, and they were forced to keep going. And they become a prisoner of starvation, so to say. They're stuck. They're trapped. Like, you're shackled to work in a feudal hierarchy. And that's something we also need to approach when going about the restaurant system, because some will say, oh, but what about mom and pop diners? What about these small, quote unquote, ethical co-op food places? There's a hierarchical system at play that just haunts feudalism haunts the restaurant industry, because the manager becomes kind of a knight, above the GM becomes a noble, and then you got the CEO. I mean, that's how I viewed it as a worker there, and I just felt like a serf. I felt trapped. I felt horribly mistreated. I felt like a cog earlier.
Yeah.
And I think that's something we definitely have to approach going forward, both from that perspective and any perspective. I mean, all of capitalism is organized in this kind of pseudo-feudal hierarchical system, and that's what's so negative about it. Like, co-ops are good, and they're the next stage towards industrial democracy, which is the ultimate goal of the IWW. And when going about restaurant abolition and like fast food abolition, it's important to recognize how convenient that makes workers' lives, because without having the logistics at play, that could lead to a lot of people who in food deserts without food. I mean, I grew up in a place where we had 2 grocery stores 4 hours apart. I grew up, so like we relied on basic substance, fishing and hunting, and fast food.
Mm-hmm.
Like Little Caesars. For Little Caesars is what we survived on in the winter one year.
Pizza.
Yeah, pizza time. They had that moon commercial, and it was awesome.
Fucking. That must suck though. I mean, like I've lived in a food desert before too, and it's in New York no less, which is kind of crazy. But I can't imagine having to travel though, because luckily enough in New York you can still walk your ass somewhere and get some food. But yeah, that's fucking nuts.
Just like the county I live in, there is 2 fast food restaurants. No longer the only like sit down restaurant shut down. Now we have 2 gas stations. But I live in Fredericksburg now, so
yeah,
I guess it's less of a food desert, more of a food, I guess, Arizona. I don't know. Because like we no longer can we just have our own food, and it's like no one feasibly can live off their own food without sacrificing earning money. I mean, like, farming is hard work because it takes just so much. So I think like there's a lot of facets that go into this outside of the meatpacking industry, the transport industry, the truckers who travel that meat, the packers, the staff who unload the truck, the staff who makes the food, and then the people who eat it also rely on it. Because I mean, today for lunch I got chicken tenders from my local restaurant. There's no ethical consumption in capitalism, as they say, but it's an important topic that we will roll forward on, and like I think that's something we all have to come together for, and that's one of the reasons we need one big union.
Right. Yeah, I don't think that this country invests enough in infrastructure either for something as idealistic as restaurant abolition to happen. And yeah, I think for a lot of these goals, it kind of does take a lot of moving pieces to work cohesively, which is why we need to get these unions to these numbers that they need so that we can accomplish these goals.
And I like to say, like, the people who make the budgets, the people in Congress and the president, they keep the infrastructure at a point where it runs just fine for commerce. You know, the roads that get worked on are commerce roads, never the roads where people live on. I mean, like, what is it? Recently, Memphis got those taser shields. Perfect example. While there's a pothole that's been around for 6 years, the same street where they were deployed. So
yeah. I couldn't believe that shit when I saw it. I was like, why all these cops look like fucking Taskmaster from Marvel? Like, what the fuck? But
who has tasers? Who has like a mass
police,
amount
bro?
of no, like, to get a taser shield, you must be expecting like a whole swath of people getting tasers, and maybe it's my like bourgeois Brooklyn experience, but like we don't carry tasers. We either carry guns or we just don't come armed at all.
Like guns or pepper spray usually. That's what I got.
Tasers?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's like what sci-fi shit up in here now.
It really is. It's really disturbing.
I'm starting to think like they just auctioned it off and like they had like a surplus. Like, hey, we cut the school budget. You want a taser shield? Like,
all right, we stole the old people's money. What are we gonna buy now? You know, I think it's really important to just think about how violent that is too. And since we're gonna kind of segue kind of seamlessly here, I have a friend who was actually struck with a taser shield. Like, apparently it burned right through, like it burned their arm through their clothes.
Wow, what?
I think it was like, it's like one of those, like, it's probably the same standard of like police tasers. So like, what, like 9-volt? I don't know. But like, there's just,
I wouldn't know either.
Just the like placement of the tasers, just because there's like 3 that hit you in 3 different spots.
Why the fuck? I can't even imagine why the fuck they need that. And it's so weird because in a lot of these videos of the cops getting their asses beat, if they do get stripped of their weapons, they fucking book it.
Yeah.
And it's like, you need all these weapons to beat up people with umbrellas? Like, I don't fucking understand.
Did you see the video of the cop trying to like roll? It was a bicycle cop, and he was trying to run someone's head over, and someone just jumped up and haymarketed him right in the face. Or, not haymarket, but haymaker. We should haymarket them. That's not associated to the IWW. Not associated to me.
We're gonna have to put
either. Don't come.
We're gonna have to put so many disclaimers in this episode. We do not condone. Well, I mean, Jesse doesn't condone. Of the IWW doesn't condone police violence, but maybe some other. Jesse, we're looking up at. I think we got about like an hour and some change. Is there any last few things you wanted to chat about? I think you mentioned the documentary.
Oh yeah, well, I put that on wraps for a minute just because it's like through Means TV, and there's some stuff like there's a bunch of moving parts there.
Nice.
But reminder, if you're a wobbly, you get 1 free month of Means TV. That's kind of cool.
That's pretty cool.
I guess I have a question for you two. We've been talking this
what's
whole
up?
time. You got your red cards?
I'm a member of the DSA, but I actually was gonna join the IWW. I was planning on it because I want to learn how to unionize too.
I don't have a red card at all. I'm gonna join right now.
Well, welcome, fellow worker.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Even if I'm unemployed?
What?
Even if I'm unemployed?
Yes. I joined when I was
Sucking the
unemployed.
government teeth.
Keep doing it. Bleed them dry.
Yeah, fuck it.
I went to a protest the other day, and I was so happy to hear the chant "Jail no bail," just because that is the way to do it. That's how you fucking shut them up. Pack it full, end it.
Yeah.
Because they can't handle it. It's like the infrastructure is here not to handle stuff. But welcome to the union, fellow workers, and anyone listening to this. You should join too. Is that rain? Sorry.
No, it's all good.
No, that's all the new members joining.
They flooding your inbox, baby.
I've spent since December trying to get people to join, and I think it's a great cause because the best thing about the IWW comparative to like UFC or AFL or any other traditional union is like it's member run. You are the you in union. You make things happen. You push it forward. Because a year ago, I wasn't a member and there was no Fredericksburg branch of the IWW. Now, there is a Fredericksburg branch and I have connections and we are deploying street medics to protest. We're helping houseless people get packs. We're doing all this stuff that needed to be done, and you can see incremental change in Fredericksburg. And that happens anywhere where people get involved. I love the IWW, but you don't have to join it to be active. You don't have to. Your card doesn't make you a hero to the proletariat. It's your actions. It's like, say you don't want to be a wobbly. Say you don't want to join a union. Say you don't want to join the DSA. If you still go out and talk to people, that is still helping push the cause, especially if you're, helping them. Because, not to discourage organization, organizing is key. That is the way to get. But direct action through any means is incremental and it helps, in my opinion. I don't know if that made sense or is that just rambly, but
No, it made sense to me.
But do join the union if you want to, and you should. So the documentary will be about Appalachia, like organizing that happened there, and it'll be about rank and file organizers. But that is to be worked on in a post-COVID time. Right now we're scripting it and coming up with the structure, and then we'll go film it. Hopefully a lot of the people don't die.
And it's grim, but unfortunately it has to be said. It's kind of sick the times we're living in now.
I guess a small little conversation we can have just to kind of round out time, but we need to get there. Wobbly music is awesome if you ever listen to it, because there's just so many genres of it. My personal favorite is a classic by Joe Hill. It's Preacher and the Slave. And then Hallelujah, I'm a Bum. And 5 Million Ways to Kill a CEO. That's a great song.
Got 5 million ways to kill a CEO. Slap him up and shake him up and then let him off the float and bait him with the dough. You can do it funk or do it disco. Yeah, disco. 5 million ways to kill a CEO.
All right, awesome. Jess, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, I run the IWW Instagram, and on Twitter, if you want to follow me, I am... Let me just log in. My name, it's at Frye the Guy. It's my name on there is Join the IWW right now because I changed it just for this. And then my profile picture is a Sabbath going into gears causing sabotage. Aside from everything, I just gotta say solidarity is key. We have to build a movement where we think about each other. We need an economy where everyone has enough to eat. And
if you're listening,
we don't need just bread.
None
we need
of this
roses
makes you want to join the IWW, or at least interested, then I don't know what will. And I seriously recommend that you do look into any union, but I would recommend this one specifically because of their ideals and their goals. All right, that's all the time we have today. Thanks for joining us. My name is Sal Limo. That's Anthony Bosico. This is the Delusionals and Jess.
Yes. Bye, everyone.
Long-haired preachers come out every night, try to tell you what's wrong and what's right. But when asked about something to eat, they will answer in voices so sweet. You will eat by and by, in that glorious land in the sky. Work and pray, live on hay. You get pie in the sky when you die, that's a lie. And the Starvation Army, they play. They sing and they clap and they pray till they get all your coin on the drum. Then they'll tell you when you're on the bum. You will eat by and by, in that glorious land in the sky. Work and pray, live on hay. You get pie in the sky when you die, that's a lie. Holy rollers and jumpers come out. They holler, they jump and they shout. Give your money to Jesus, they say. He will cure all diseases today. You will eat by and by, in that glorious land in the sky. Work and pray, live on hay. You get pie in the sky when you die, that's a lie. Working men of all countries unite. Together for freedom we'll fight. And the world and its wealth we have gained. To the grafters we'll sing this refrain. You will eat by and by, when you learned how to cook and to fry. Chop some wood, try to do you good. You'll eat in the sweet by and by, that's no lie.